was, I think, a great way to begin a new stage in life for this man born blind as he came to faith in Jesus Christ. Lord, I believe, he said, and worshipped him. But it's amazing just how much confusion Jesus can create simply by his ministry and his presence in the lives of the people of his time, especially those who are so very much in need of what he could do for them. There was a man born blind, and Jesus healed him. Go, he said, and wash in the pool of Siloam, a name that means sent. Jesus sent this man, and the man went. This action was perhaps the second part of the contract that Jesus had established with this blind man. I can heal you, Jesus may have said, but you have to do something yourself. And again, this blind man responded. He went, he washed, and he was healed. Now, such an event should have created great excitement among the people who had come to know this blind man, perhaps from his place where he would sit and beg in their street. But there must have been something so different about this man who could now see. Was he the same man or not? The locals discussed. Until the man himself would say, I am he, I am the man. But again, it seemed to be so much for these locals. So they brought in the authority of the time, the religious leaders, the ones who would clarify the situation for them. But again, even here, amongst the religious leaders, confusion would reign. The man who had been born blind had now become centre of attention. His own people became interested in this situation. And then they brought in the Pharisees to adjudicate on the matter. And all of these people were now interested in the experience of this man who had been born blind. What have you to say about this man who healed you, the Pharisees asked. Perhaps because of his encounter with that man Jesus, who had brought him the gift of sight. This man who would choose to speak. He is a prophet, the man had said. It was the blind man who had experienced that healing presence of Jesus for himself. And now he had become a witness. Perhaps for ourselves it may be through our own lived experience of that presence of God within our lives that we too are often called to witness. To witness to that very power and presence of God in the world in which we live. We may not experience that sense of being healed within our lives, but we can know that through our own times of prayer, we can be open to the healing presence of Jesus Christ for ourselves, just as that man who had been born blind experienced in his life. Because of our lives and our lived experience, we too can now become witnesses. Witnesses to God's presence in the world. Time and again, there may be people who are searching for something beyond their everyday lives. People who perhaps are blind to the wonder of the moment of God's action within their lives. We may not be able to give them their sight, as Jesus had done with that man born blind. But by our own lives, by our commitment to faith, when we share that faith with other people, we can then help them to see. The man born blind had been changed by his encounter with Jesus Christ. Now he had moved from simply being a beggar on the streets to the life of a man who shared his experience with all who came to him. He spoke about his encounter. He showed by his healing just what the presence of Jesus Christ can be all about for those who come to him. And this man born blind was courageous enough to speak. He was courageous enough to proclaim his faith. He is a prophet, he said to the religious leaders. Today, we go about our everyday life, and we show by our commitment in faith that we do also believe. And that may be all that is asked of us as people of faith. But then there may be times when more is asked of us. Times when we are called to speak of God, And we do this by the actions of our lives. There are times when God calls us to live what we believe by our own ministry in the world. It's at those times that we too, like that man born blind, can also acknowledge our faith and say, Lord, I believe. I wonder how often we respond